Hello, and welcome to tonight's story. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we'll embark on a gentle journey into the secret world of squirrels, those small, graceful creatures who inhabit the cathedral of branches above us. We'll discover the profound beauty hidden within their quiet days, following one tender soul through the sacred rhythms of seasons, survival, and wonder. This is a meditation on presence, on the art of living fully in each moment, whispered through the language of rustling leaves and morning light. This is your time to let go of the day, to settle into your seat by the window, feel the steady rhythm of the train beneath you, and watch the landscapes of imagination unfold beyond the glass, forests that breathe with ancient wisdom, canopies that dance with possibility. There is nothing you need to do. No rush, no noise, only the soft passage of time and the comfort of the journey, where small miracles reveal themselves in the gentle percussion of tiny claws against bark. So, find a comfortable position, allow your breath to slow, and let your mind float gently as we begin our journey into the quiet wonders that await.
In the hushed sanctuary of dawn, where morning mist weaves through ancient oaks and maples, there exists a world within our world. Delicate, persistent, alive with the gentle percussion of tiny claws against bark. Here in this vertical realm of swaying branches and dappled light, the squirrels begin their quiet symphony. Close your eyes and listen. Can you hear it? The soft rustle of leaves, disturbed by a creature no larger than your cupped hands, yet carrying within its small frame the entire architecture of survival, wonder, and an inexplicable joy that seems to dance at the very edges of our understanding. This is their story, not told in grand proclamations, but whispered in the language of rustling fur, the gentle thump of acorns hitting earth, and the barely audible scratch of claws finding purchase on the rough skin of trees that have witnessed countless seasons of such small, perfect dramas. The world awakens slowly, like consciousness emerging from the deepest of dreams. In the canopy above, a gray squirrel stretches, a movement so fluid it seems, choreographed by the wind itself. Her name, if squirrels have names, might be something soft and earthy, like whisper or hazel, but she exists beyond the need for such human constructions. She simply is, present in this moment with a completeness that we, with our scattered minds and endless longings, can barely comprehend. Her day begins not with alarm clocks or urgent necessities, but with a gentle emergence into awareness. The morning light filters through leaves that seem to breathe with their own quiet rhythm, casting patterns of gold and green across her small, perfect form. She sits for a moment, just sits, and in this stillness there is something profound, something that speaks to the ancient wisdom of simply being present. Watch her as she moves. Each gesture is purposeful yet unhurried, efficient yet graceful. She descends the oak tree with the fluid confidence of one who was born to navigate this three-dimensional world of branches and possibility. Her tail, that magnificent plume, moves like a question mark against the sky, balancing her descent with an artistry that would make dancers weep with envy. The morning air carries scents that we can barely detect, but that speak to her in a language older than words. The earthiness of damp soil, the green promise of new leaves, the distant musk of other creatures moving through their own quiet dramas. She pauses, head tilted, listening to sounds that exist just beyond our hearing. The subtle communications of her kind, the whispered warnings of birds, the gentle conversation between wind and branch. her territory is not measured in acres or marked by fences, but exists as a living map written in scent and memory, territory and possibility. Every tree tells a story. The old maple with its hollow trunk, where winter supplies might be cached, the young birch with bark perfect for sharpening claws, the towering pine, whose cones will provide sustenance when autumn arrives with its promise of scarcity. She knows this landscape with an intimacy that borders on the mystical, the texture of each branch beneath her feet, the give and flex of every twig, the secret highways that connect tree to tree in an aerial network that spans her entire world. This is not mere familiarity, but a relationship, deep, complex, essential. She and her environment exist in a constant dialogue, each shaping and being shaped by the other. From her perch high in the canopy, the world spreads below like a living tapestry. The ground, which seems so solid and permanent to us, appears to her as just another dimension of possibility, a place to visit briefly before returning to the safety and freedom of the heights. Down there, among the fallen leaves and scattered acorns, other stories unfold: the patient foraging of ground squirrels, the industrious work of chipmunks, the slow, ancient movements of beetles and ants, going about their own small but essential business. But it is here, in this aerial realm, that she truly belongs. The branches sway beneath her, like a living ship navigating invisible currents of air, and she moves with them, becoming part of their rhythm, their dance with gravity and wind, sometimes in moments of pure joy, for surely that is what it must be. She leaps from branch to branch with an abandon that speaks of trust, so complete it resembles faith. Food, for her, is not merely sustenance but meditation. Each acorn a small prayer, each seed a tiny miracle to be discovered, examined, and either consumed or carefully cached for future need. Watch her as she searches. There is no frantic urgency here, no desperate scrabbling, but rather a methodical attention that speaks of patience learned over countless generations. She finds an acorn, and the moment becomes sacred. She holds it in her small hands, hands that seem almost human in their dexterity, yet remain utterly wild, and examines it with the focus of a jeweler, appraising a precious stone. The weight of it, the sound it makes when gently shaken, the scent that speaks of its freshness or staleness, all of this information flows through her awareness in an instant of perfect attention. This acorn passes the test. She positions it carefully between her teeth, and the sound of her gnawing becomes part of the forest's quiet symphony, a gentle percussion that speaks of life sustaining itself with grace and efficiency. There is no waste here, no hurried consumption. Each bite is measured, deliberate, grateful. But not all treasures are meant for immediate consumption. Some acorns, some seeds, some small discoveries are destined for the future, cached away in the secret places that exist throughout her territorial map. She carries a particularly fine specimen to the base of the old maple, her movements quick but careful, and begins to dig. Her small claws work the earth with the precision of a master gardener, creating a small hollow just the right size for her treasure. The burial ritual is brief, but somehow ceremonial. She places the acorn in its earthen nest, covers it carefully, then marks the spot with subtle signs that only she will recognize. This is investment in tomorrow, faith in future seasons, trust in the continuing cycle of need and abundance that governs her world. Solitary though she may seem, she exists within a complex web of relationships that spans her entire community. The other squirrels in her territory are not merely neighbors, but participants in an intricate social dance that unfolds throughout each day in gestures subtle and profound. A young male appears at the edge of her tree, and the interaction that follows is poetry written in movement and sound. He approaches with careful respect, his tail flicking in what might be greeting, question, or invitation. She responds with her own series of gestures, a turn of the head, a positioning of her body that speaks volumes about her current intentions and availability. Their conversation, if it can be called that, unfolds in a language we can observe but never fully translate. Soft chittering sounds, the rapid flick of tails, the careful positioning of bodies on branches. All of this carries meaning that flows between them, like music between musicians who have played together for years. Sometimes the interaction is playful, developing into a chase that spirals up and around trees. With the joy of children at play, they move through their three-dimensional playground with breathtaking speed and agility, leaping gaps that would terrify us, spiraling around tree trunks in defiance of gravity, their pursuit becoming a celebration of pure physical joy. Other times, the encounter is more serious. These conversations are rarely aggressive. Conflict is costly and dangerous, but they are firm, clear, essential to the functioning of their small society. As afternoon light begins to slant through the forest canopy, she turns her attention to matters of shelter and comfort. Her nest, a marvel of engineering and instinct, awaits attention and improvement. Nestled in the fork of sturdy branches, high above the ground, it represents weeks of careful construction and constant maintenance. The building materials are humble but perfect. Twigs and leaves, strips of bark, soft moss, and anything else that can be woven into the growing structure. But the process of construction is anything but simple. Each twig must be chosen for its strength and flexibility, each leaf selected for its ability to shed water and provide insulation. She works with the focused intensity of an artist, weaving and adjusting, testing and retesting each element of her creation. The nest must be waterproof yet breathable, strong enough to withstand wind and storm yet soft enough to cradle her small body through long winter nights. It must be camouflaged from predators, yet positioned to catch the warming rays of morning sun. As she works, other creatures go about their own construction projects nearby. Birds weave their own architectural marvels, each species following blueprints written instinct and refined by countless generations of trial and success. The forest becomes a living workshop, filled with the quiet sounds of building and improvement, preparation and hope. Her nest, when finally complete, will be more than shelter. It will be sanctuary, fortress, nursery, and retreat. Within its woven walls, she will sleep through storms, give birth to young, and find refuge from the world when refuge is needed. It represents not just survival, but the deep, abiding desire for comfort and security that connects her to every living thing. She exists in constant conversation with time's gentle progression, her body and behavior responding to signals too subtle for our awareness. The length of days, the angle of sunlight, the changing chemistry of leaves and air, all of this speaks to her in the ancient language of seasons, guiding her preparations for the transformations to come. Spring speaks to her of abundance and possibility. The earth awakens from winter's long sleep, offering new growth, fresh foods, and the stirring of reproductive instincts that will ensure the continuation of her kind. Her body changes, becomes more energetic, more alert to the possibilities that surround her. The forest fills with the sounds of new life, the calling of birds, the rustle of small creatures venturing forth, the gentle percussion of growing things, pushing through earth and bark. Summer arrives like a symphony of green, and her world becomes a paradise of plenty. Food is abundant, the weather kind, the days long and warm. This is the time for building strength, for exploration, for the careful teaching of young, if they have come. The canopy becomes dense and secret, providing both shelter and highway, playground and marketplace. But always, threading through the abundance of summer, runs the golden thread of autumn's approach. She feels it first as the subtlest shift in light, a barely perceptible change in the forest's breathing. Soon enough, the leaves will begin their spectacular transformation. The air will carry new sense of change and preparation, and her world will shift into the urgent rhythm of harvest and storage. Autumn, when it comes, brings both beauty and imperative. The trees explode in colors that seem almost too vivid to be real. Scarlet and gold, amber and bronze, a celebration of ending that rivals any human festival. But beneath this beauty lies the serious business of survival. Acorns rain down in abundance, and her days become focused on the great work of collecting and caching, preparing for the lean months ahead. Winter arrives, not as enemy, but as teacher, bringing lessons in patience, endurance, and the deep wisdom of rest. The forest transforms into a world of stark beauty, branches etched against gray skies, snow creating new topographies of silence and reflection. Her world contracts but also deepens, becomes more interior, more contemplative. The frantic activity of autumn gives way to a different rhythm, slower, more measured, more thoughtful. Days are spent in careful management of cached resources, strategic foraging when weather permits, and long hours of rest in the warmth and safety of her nest. This is not hibernation, but rather a kind of active patience, a demonstration of trust in her own preparations and in the cyclical nature of plenty and scarcity. On those rare winter days when warmth returns briefly to the forest, she ventures out with the joy of a prisoner released. The world appears new under its coating of snow and ice. Familiar territories become foreign landscapes. Old pathways disappear beneath white drifts, and new routes must be discovered and memorized. But mostly, winter is a time of waiting, not passive waiting, but the active patience of one who knows that change is the only constant, that spring will return as surely as it has returned for countless generations before her. In her nest, warm and safe, she embodies a kind of faith that we, with our artificial lights and controlled climates, have largely forgotten. Spring returns as it always does, bringing with it the promise of renewal and the possibility of new life. If she is mated, her body now carries the future of her kind, tiny lives developing in the safety of her womb, lives that will soon demand everything she has to give and more. The birth, when it comes, is both ordinary and miraculous. In the safety of her nest, she brings forth creatures so small and helpless, they seem more like possibilities than actual squirrels. Blind, deaf, nearly hairless, they exist in a state of pure need and pure trust, their survival entirely dependent on her vigilance and care. Watch her as she tends them. Every gesture speaks of devotion that transcends understanding, the gentle grooming, the patient nursing, the constant vigilance against danger. She becomes fierce now, in a way that transforms her, her maternal instincts awakening a courage that would make her take on creatures many times her size if they threaten her young. As days pass, the tiny creatures begin their own miraculous transformation. Eyes open to drink and light for the first time. Ears prick up to catch the subtle sounds of their mother's movements. Fur grows to cover pink skin, and the first hesitant movements begin, the stirring of limbs that will soon carry them through their aerial world with grace and confidence. When her young are old enough to leave the nest, she becomes their first and most important teacher. Every skill they will need for survival must be demonstrated, practiced, perfected. The lessons begin simply: how to balance on a branch without falling, how to judge distances between leaps, how to distinguish between safe and dangerous foods. But the teaching goes deeper than mere survival skills. She transmits to them the accumulated wisdom of countless generations, the knowledge of weather patterns and seasonal changes, the understanding of territorial boundaries and social dynamics, the deep awareness of predator and prey that keeps her kind alive in a world full of danger. Most importantly, she teaches them the art of attention, that quality of awareness that allows her to notice the subtle changes in wind direction that might signal a storm, the barely audible sound that might indicate danger, the scent that speaks of opportunity or threat. This is not mere hypervigilance, but rather a way of being present in the world that encompasses both alertness and peace. Watch the young ones as they practice their new skills. Their movements are awkward at first, uncertain, full of the earnest clumsiness of beginners, but gradually, day by day, they begin to find their grace. The leap that seemed impossible yesterday becomes routine today. The branch that seemed too narrow to navigate becomes just another path in their expanding map of possibility. As seasons cycle and years pass, she becomes elder in her small community, a repository of experience and wisdom, a link in the chain that connects past and future. Her movements may become slightly less agile, her responses a fraction slower, but her understanding deepens in ways that transcend physical capability. She has survived storms that felled mighty trees, outlasted winters that claimed many of her contemporaries, raised young who have gone on to raise young of their own. In her small life, she has witnessed the great cycles that govern all existence: birth and death, abundance and scarcity, triumph and loss. Yet perhaps the most remarkable thing about her is not her survival, but her apparent capacity for joy, even in old age. Even after countless challenges and losses, she still seems to find delight in the simple pleasures of her existence: the warmth of morning sun on her fur, the satisfaction of a perfectly cached acorn, the play of light and shadow through moving leaves. There is something in her presence that speaks to a fundamental truth about existence, that life, even in its smallest expressions, carries within itself something precious and irreplaceable. She embodies a way of being that is utterly present, completely engaged with the world, as it is rather than as we might wish it to be. In the Cathedral of Branches, where we began this meditation, the ancient rhythms continue. New squirrels have taken up residence in familiar territories. Young ones learn the old lessons. The eternal cycle of season and survival spins onward with its quiet majesty. The particular squirrel whose story we have followed may have passed beyond our observation, but the essence of what she represented, that perfect attention to the present moment, that graceful navigation of challenge and opportunity, that inexplicable capacity for joy in the face of uncertainty, continues to whisper through the forest canopy. Perhaps this is the deepest teaching of the squirrel's life, that meaning is not found in grand gestures or monumental achievements, but in the faithful, mindful engagement with whatever life presents, in the careful tending of shelter, the patient gathering of sustenance, the gentle raising of young, the graceful acceptance of seasons of plenty and seasons of want. Close your eyes and listen once more. Can you hear it still? The soft percussion of small claws against bark, the gentle rustle of leaves disturbed by creatures going about their essential business, the quiet symphony of life, lived with complete presence and inexplicable grace. This is their gift to us, a reminder that wonder exists not only in the grand and dramatic, but in the small and persistent, in the daily acts of survival and care that make up the vast majority of any life, human or otherwise. In the space between breaths, in the pause between one moment and the next, their story continues. A whispered meditation on the art of being fully alive in a world that demands everything we have to give and offers, in return, the incomparable gift of existence itself. The branches sway, the light shifts, the ancient dance continues, and somewhere in the canopy above, a small creature moves with perfect grace through a world of infinite possibility, carrying within her small frame the entire mystery of what it means to be beautifully, completely, momentarily alive.